Northwest guy is you're raising a batting cage, you're raising an indoor facility, you're taking ground balls off of, you know how to work in limited space.
Okay, I'm going to tell you right now, and I know I'm biased because I'm a Northwest guy, but I will take a Northwest guy over somebody from another area any day of the week because I just think they're tougher. I just think they're tougher guys.
I think that's one of the best things about baseball is it still is a way that you can really develop toughness and develop loyalty and all those kinds of things that we want out of young men in particular.
Welcome to the Pacific Northwest Fungo Banter Podcast, where we highlight all of the great coaches of the Pacific Northwest. Now, here are your hosts, Eric Sorensen, Jason Jarrett, and Kelly Gow.
Well, welcome back, Pacific Northwest Fungo Banner fans, to another episode. And tonight we are real excited to have our next guest on, as we are thrilled to be joined by head coach at Wenatchee Valley Community College, Aaron Vaughn. Thank you so much for taking time to be on the podcast with us tonight.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here and talk some baseball. I mean, gotta love the Pacific Northwest, got some good baseball. We're a great program, so all excited here.
Absolutely. And right away, our first hard-hitting question with every episode is, what is your favorite fungo?
Oof. I got a tie right here. So I actually, crazy enough, I have a player that started making his own fungos. And so I've only, he does the hand dipping and all that kind of stuff. And so I've absolutely loved his fungos. It's like firehouse fungos. He's a fireman now, so he just has some fun with that. But otherwise, I'm an infield guy too. I like the little Mizuno 34-inch fungo. That one is pretty clean as far as the standard ones.
Great answer. Yeah, that's a great choice. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Coach, talk us through your path in baseball, where you grew up playing, and then what got you into coaching to where you are today.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was born and raised down in Arizona, so great baseball town down there too, obviously Tucson, Arizona. So played through high school there, had a successful career, looked on to college ball and kind of looked all over the map and ended up at NNU, so not too far away from Wenatchee. And oddly enough, I just had one of my best friends going over there. And so he kept convincing me to go look at the school, try out, get a look, and got a good look and some offers over there. So went to NNU, played 4 years there. After that, had a pretty solid career. So got the spot with the Astros and did that for a year and a year of semi-pro in the Frontier League afterwards. At that point, I could see, I was engaged at the time, and I'd always told my wife, like, once I was no longer on the upward train, that I would be okay giving it up. And so I saw that was the sign. I debated playing a little in the Pecos League just to try it out. They actually had a team down in Tucson at that time, so it could have been fun, but we were ready to get married and settle down. So did that and thought baseball was done for my career. Kind of just kept going and started working, and I looked towards getting more schooling. I always tell this, I have a bachelor's degree in pre-physical therapy, and I tell everyone, like, never get a degree that says pre, because it means you're going to more school afterwards. So, and so, yeah, did that, had to go get my master's, and we were in Spokane at that time. So went and got my master's in athletic admin, and kind of while I was doing it, ended up coaching a little high school ball at Ferris High School over there. Did some private lessons, honestly, just because, like, I needed money. We were strapped for cash, so I did some lessons at Athletic Edge Spokane. So shout out to them. They were great for me. So I did that kind of off and on for about 3 years and realized coaching was actually a ton of fun. My wife was from Moses Lake, and so oddly enough, she got a job offer in Moses Lake. We didn't ever want to go back there, to be honest. No shade on Moses Lake, but it was not where we wanted to end up by any means. But just kind of got placed there, and I called up the head coach at that point, Jameson Lang, really good guy. And I was like, hey, do you need any help? Like, I'm going to be in town. I'm looking for some other jobs, but I would love to stick around baseball. And he had just lost his guy that was helping a lot of his pitching and doing some other stuff. So I said, yeah, I'd love to fill in. So yeah, I did that for 3 years, had a ton of fun. I was working full time on the side too, but yeah, I had a ton of fun with that. Started helping with the recruiting business and all that kind of stuff towards the last year, and then got the opportunity to get a job here at Wenatchee Valley, and they were real good because it was a partner job. So I run the rec center, so it's full time, which is really nice, especially for the junior college. You don't always get that. So yeah, I've been loving it, and we're year 5 now, and we're on the upward train at least. That's good.
Coach, as an Arizona guy and coming up to the Pacific Northwest, was there much for you to really adapt, or I mean, you're down in the Southern Hemisphere, a lot warmer weather, early spring up here. It's not always the greatest, especially if you play in Ellensburg, you're dealing with sleet and wind, and who never knows. I mean, Eric will tell you, but how much was that for you? Was it a difficult transition, or was it easy?
Yeah. No, I would say as a player, it actually wasn't horrible. I transitioned pretty quickly. So I was mainly a pitcher. I did a little bit of two-way stuff, but I was mainly a pitcher by far. And you just kind of had to get used to some things. And it really wasn't that bad. Like for me, I just was like, well, I'm doing this. Like I got to go full toil, and I'm not going to try to baby myself into anything. And so we were just kind of thrown into it. I mean, I still remember shoveling snow before games sometimes. So the warning track, you still go out and play. But no, I mean, it was a lot of fun. Honestly, as a pitcher, you get enough adrenaline when you get going. You ain't cold at that point anymore. And yeah, you just kind of live on that. And I remember probably the worst part of it was sitting in a bullpen on the day you're not going to pitch, and just realizing how tight my shoulder blades would get because I was just so crunched over. Never had felt that one. So like that was a different soreness I had to get used to. But yeah, overall, really not too bad as a player. I would say I didn't coach in Arizona, but as a coach, I think it's harder just because your plans always change. You never really know what's happening. So that one's a little more of an adjustment, where Arizona, you just know you're going outside, you're playing. It's not going to ever rain except for one week a year pretty much. So yeah, a little bit of adjustment, but I definitely love the Northwest. I plan on sticking up around this area for a very long time.
So talk about the transition of you as a coach, from player to coach. Obviously you went from D2 baseball to pros to indie ball to assistant or high school assistant. Like that's a long ladder to kind of move around, right? Like, so talk about kind of maybe your progressions as a coach from, maybe go to the college age, or we can start at Ferris. How did you kind of learn your way into coaching, and kind of how have you evolved, yourself to the role you have now?
No, especially even, just Ferris is the kind of first raw coaching experience. Definitely didn't know it. I knew baseball really well, but didn't know what I was doing as far as like helping run a team and all those kind of things. So it was good. I helped a couple guys and led the program for a little while. But that was definitely good just to be able to like see that coaching is a lot more than just knowing the mechanics and the strategies and that kind of stuff. But being a coach is way, way more than that, especially in the relationship side. And watching JMO, me and him, and I've told him this 100 times, we were a great pair because we're complete opposites. That guy, love him. He has crazy good fire. He inspires the players really, really well. This guy, a little bit of a hothead. The players loved it too. You never knew when he was going to blow up at you. And then versus me, where I'm a much more like organized, like to have everything kind of laid out, a little bit calmer to get to that angle. Like I'll still get on guys when I need to, but a lot more of a little more of a relaxed environment with just doing our things right, where he's busting on you. And so that was good to see that, hey, like what he has does work. And knowing that as a head coach, I would have to adopt some of those things. You have to have, you got to have a little fire behind you. It was super beneficial having coaching under a guy who we were complete opposite styles, and just learning it. Because he did a great job. Big Ben's a tough area to recruit, and he was great with kids, and kids loved his program. He would piss them off, but then he would hug them right afterwards. And so he was that kind of a coach, and guys loved it. So I think that was super helpful for me to be able to see something that was different than what I had, I guess, played under, and also kind of what I had envisioned myself as a coach.
Yeah, coach, I think a lot of times, for those new coaches coming in, we try to model maybe after a particular individual or think in our mind of a certain style. What was your key to, I mean, you kind of talked about, your experience with Coach Lang and some of the things, but what was that one thing that just really set and paved your way of like, hey, this is the style of coach I'm going to become and who I want to be?
Yeah, I mean, again, so my first year here at Wenatchee Valley, I was raw to being a head coach and running that whole program. And so that was a year, and I told myself the first couple of years, I was like, I need to test out a lot of things in coaching, which sounds bad when you're at a college level. You're still testing things out in that level or that capacity. But I was like, I need to see what works for me as far as like, I need to be super fiery at some point and then see how players react to that. I need to be over relaxed at some point and see how that reacts. And so I would say in that first year, especially, I tested a bunch of just different kind of philosophies, different ways about going with players. I mean, the one thing I kind of knew that was always going to be a huge part of my style was just very relationship style, more just making sure the guys know I have a really high expectation for them, but I'm always gonna have their best interest in mind. I'm always gonna be honest. I'm always gonna be truthful, and just having a true open relationship with those guys. And even like JMO, he was very fiery, but he did a great job of being honest and real with guys. And so I knew that was a huge part of it. And we've had some success here at Wenatchee, and I think that's been a big part of it, is players can buy into that. And so, yeah, but I mean, that first year it was fun. And I mean, heck, I still test out different things every year, just like, hey, I wonder how the players react to this. I wonder how recruiting talks if I throw this in there and that in there. But yeah, I definitely that relationship style and just being pretty real with guys and letting them know where they're at, and yeah, not just filling their heads full of, oh, coach believes in me and I believe in them, but I also tell them where they're actually at. I knew that was gonna be a big part of our program.
Kelly, you're muted.
Back to 2020 all over again.
Oh,
There he is.
We go. Hey,
how'd you know I was talking to you guys? Like, the chat.
Just scripting it out. It's all right. It's all
Chad hasn't been here yet.
Give it time.
Train of thought.
What were you saying?
Yeah, no, I think this day and age, and maybe things have changed for you more recently, but maybe not significantly, that guys aren't necessarily used to hearing what they don't want to hear, right? Of an honest opinion that they've never maybe got in their entire life, right? And I think, knowing you and having at least in an exhibition status coaching against you in a game, like, you can obviously tell that there's care there. There's not, there's thought, there's process, there's everything that goes into it. And on the recruiting trail too, seeing you coach teams, like, it's not just blind decision making, right? Like there's thought process going on there. So I talk about maybe how that's been lately to, build up enough, respect within your guys early on to where they can take that information, and maybe how have you handled that lately with players that struggle to hear criticism?
Yeah. I mean, everyone struggles with criticism. No one really wants to be told that. I think a really good example would be, he's probably my best player on the team right now, is Malachi. I think he'll be a D1 potential guy next year, Malachi Emery Henderson. And he did great at the end of last fall, but we were really, really honest with him. We were like, hey, dude, like, you should be a D1 and you are not working hard enough to be a D1 kid. He thought his exit meeting was going to be all, pats on the butt and hugs, because he's crazy talented. We loved him. He was going to be our dude. We knew that. I mean, the guy could have never worked hard and still been our dude at this level. But he didn't take it very well, and it was kind of winter break. Had a long processing, and I know, like, me and him are really tight now. And he told me, like, he was pretty frustrated and angry with me, but he kind of spurred it on. And once he talked to some guys who'd been in the program a little bit, that also helped him explain where we were coming from. That was definitely a huge piece. So, I mean, I would say I really do rely on our players too to help in that process of being hard on guys. I mean, our sophomore leaders have done a pretty good job typically, and like this year we've had some really good sophomore leaders of when I've been hard on a kid, take him aside and explain why and explain where I get, I'm hard on a kid because I see the potential. I know they're going to do something. I don't want to see them not do it. And so once the guys kind of understand where we're coming at when we're harsher on them and we tell them the tough things, then that conversation usually goes really well. Like we had a really similar case in the fall with a kid who should have been on a D1 roster, and I was pretty harsh on him because he just thought he was all that and didn't think he had to do anything about it. And he was real angry at me for about a week. And Malachi pulled him aside, talked to him, and said, "Hey, this is why he's doing it. I hope you realize that." And once that conversation he's had a completely different fall, and it's been really fun to work with him. And so I really do. I rely on a lot of the players to help even mediate that, because I'm pretty honest with those guys too. So
yeah, I think having your, teams and kids know who the talented players are within a team, right? Like I think it's pretty easy. It stands out who has the exit velo, who can move this way or that way. Like being a college player, you have a feel for talent around you. And when you see a coach be critical of the most talented player on the field or one of them, right, the buy-in that you get from a team aspect is kind of second to none. And it's tough to do that, in certain situations, because those guys are perceived leaders because they're the best talented individual, right? So people are going to flock to the people that are good players because they want to be in that circle. They want to be good like them. But being critical of those guys like really shows that, hey, like I'm doing this for the greater good of us as a group, right? Not to belittle him, not to make him small, or maybe even the last player on the roster, your fifth catcher, your fourth first baseman, whatever. If you're being critical on him, if he sees you on the best guy, like he's going to fall in line, right? And there's not going to be some of those side conversations or some of those cliques forming that coach just hates me or this and that, because you're actually on the better guy, right?
And we've even really noticed it too. If you don't get on that better guy consistently, then everyone thinks like, well, he's the dude. His work ethic should be my work ethic. And so that can be a really slippery slope for guys too.
100%.
The leadership to grow with those guys that have had the conversations after you had the conversations that turned the other guy's perspective around. How long did it take for you guys to build that in your program after you took over? And what were some of the things that you guys did to build the leadership qualities of the leaders in your program?
Yeah, I mean, obviously year one, I just got handed a roster, so it was a little bit of disaster, but I was pretty lucky that year one, there were some kids even on that roster who were pretty sick of losing and not having great experiences all the time. So that was a huge piece of it, that I came into a situation that was kind of rock bottom and they wanted something more, which come into. And then for me too, another huge piece of it was even that first year, I have some really good assistant coaches who same exact, just like not even nothing to do with baseball, but mental like philosophy as me, as far as taking ownership and doing those kind of things. And something that we've done really well that I would say even by year two, we felt pretty comfortable with, was creating ownership with those guys. Like I have we call them a caveat leader, but it's a group of, kind of team voted captains and a couple coach picked ones. And usually every few weeks I just pull them aside and I ask them, be like, hey, like, tell me what I need to know. Tell me, like, is myself doing something wrong? Could practices run better? And so when I've given them a lot of ownership of the program too. And once they've seen that ownership and that I'm going to actually listen to them, and I'm going to have my own opinions, and we'll have that banter even back and forth sometimes of like, hey, do you think this will work with this guy? What do you think? But when they see that I give them some true ownership of the program, that was probably a huge turnaround. And I saw that, like I said, probably that first year group, it was kind of starting to figure out, but I would say by year two, guys started to kind of figure that if they wanted to have a good program, they were going to need to do something about it too. And that I was going to be there to support them and help them in the best way and always have their best interest. But I think a huge piece is I've always told my guys, like, I think I'm a great coach. I don't got everything figured out by any means, and I'm still learning, I'm still developing. And so once I've kind of broken those barriers of like, it's not always just me versus you, but it's actual group effort, those kind of conversations have happened a lot easier. The tougher ones, guys talking to each other and helping each other out in the background too.
Mm-hmm. Banner fans, if you guys got any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat for Coach Vaughn. Coach, this is kind of transitioning to your staff a little bit. This is something we really haven't talked much in any of our previous episodes, but for that new coach, he's got maybe a brand new high school job, and maybe he's got, a long list of years of playing experience, but this is his first go around. How does someone like that, and even as for you, go about, bringing in the right guys for your staff and getting the right buy-in and the philosophy that you're trying to develop in your program?
Yeah. I would say probably a couple things that come right to my mind. First one, go find an old guy. Like, it's not a joke. You need to go find someone that's 65 plus to come volunteer or whatever, help out. Every single year I've had at least one 65 plus old guy who just has that baseball grandfatherly knowledge. You need that as a coach. The players love it. Like, you need that in there. And I would say for me too is where I think we had the most success is I was really lucky to get some good baseball knowledge coaches. But I got more so coaches who were bought into taking care of players the same way that I kind of think about it. Mm-hmm. And we were all on that same mind track. Like, even a couple of my coaches were pretty young to coaching when they came in. But if you surround yourself with people who have that similar mindset of taking care of players the right way, then baseball is a lot easier. I mean, it's great to have the knowledge. You need that to help develop guys. But if guys are happy, they just play better. And if your staff is on the same page, guys are usually pretty happy. So yeah, find an old guy and then get a whole bunch of people that kind of have that same mentality as you.
Love that. How about roles within a staff? Like, obviously as an assistant, you're kind of maybe more single track of what your role is as far as position groups and those type of things. But, how have you transitioned from, being a collegiate pitcher to kind of what your role is within your team as, I don't want to say it like an assistant as a head coach, right? Because everyone kind of has their position group or that group that they go on. So talk about maybe your progression throughout your time in that.
Yeah. I mean, definitely it was great. Like, even at Big Bend as an assistant, it was really good that I had a lot of control of the staff, but it also gave me opportunities to have a pretty good relationship with everyone on the pitching staff. And so I know that was definitely a piece of becoming a head coach. I knew you have to kind of toe that line of a relationship where I want to be at least in a relationship and understanding and know my guys and know how they're doing at school and some of those things. But also know that I can't be buddies like I was an assistant coach. Mm-hmm. You have to, there's a fine line of structure of making sure I'm going to love and support the guy, but also telling him when they need to do better, being harsh on him, being a jerk sometimes. And so that was definitely a piece where it took me a little bit longer to learn that, probably a couple of years of saying, okay, hey, you work with the outfielders. I want you to go talk with, have a 5 to 10 minute conversation with every single outfielder once a week. Like, that's it, during practice, whenever it is. Every player basically had one assistant coach that they could turn to a little bit more to talk about things. Maybe they have an issue with me or the team, or maybe they're, they don't feel comfortable at opening up that their girlfriend just broke up with them, but they'll tell the pitching coach that. And so that's been a huge piece. And then kind of the coaches, the assistant coaches, knowing how to, that they can give me that information and I'm not going to go stab them in the back basically with it, but I'm going to find the right way to use that information the right way. I'm going to ask the right questions now that I know something to get some things on the table that might need to be there. So I think that took me, I would say this is probably the year we've done that the best overall. Last year we did pretty good with it too, but yeah, each coach kind of knowing, hey, you're not just here to coach. Like, if you can get into a relationship with your 10 guys, your positional group, Then I'll do the little bit more, medium level stuff, a little bit more, I guess, business style relationship in some ways.
Love
Yeah, a
that.
good coaching staff, really is like a perfect marriage, if there is a perfect marriage, but it's like knowing your roles, right? I mean, as you're raising kids too, and knowing who has what roles and different aspects of that. And so, if you can be transparent and very open in conversations and kind of throw away the pride and the arrogancy, you're going to have definitely a lot more success as a staff for sure.
Yeah, and that's one thing. Like I said, we've probably figured that out the best this year, and that's something I've had to work on, is just making sure the staff, my assistants, also know what I hope to have out of them and what their expectations are. But again, like, we're JUCO, none of my coaches are full time just coaching. They all have another job, like I did it, and so I always make sure that tell them too, like, hey, tell me when like you need help, when it's too much. So it's kind of that back and forth where, hey, here's what I would dream scenario. What can you give me that's realistic, and let's find something that works. And so I would say this year we've had pretty good group of guys too that want to be able to have those kind of roles and kind of find the balance of life too, though.
Was there anything particular, Coach, that you did leading up to the season to help with that, or is it just the individuals that you were bringing in and just maybe the continuation of conversation you've had over the last few years with some of your guys?
I would say maybe a couple of things, because I've had a couple, like on this year we have a kid who literally graduated here last year, who's helping coach, and he's honestly been a fantastic job. Like, he's blown me out of the waters with how well he's doing. So I would say, like, having a lot of the conversations is definitely helpful, but also I think one thing that's given them that kind of the drive to do some of it is I give them a lot of ownership of their position group or whoever they're working with. And they know I'm not going to go over coach them if I disagree with something, but instead we're going to wait and have a conversation, be like, hey, maybe think about attacking it this way. Like, even year one with guys, I had 3 assistant coaches and I didn't know them. I met them for about a month before that and got lucky with some good ones. But I gave them a ton of ownership early. And I think when they feel like they are actually a part of the team and it's not me just doing everything, that helps a ton. And then I've always told our players too, like, I'm going to have in hitting, for example, like me and Josh Irvin, he's one of our other guys who does a lot of hitting stuff with me. And I've told them all the time, hey, we both have your best interest in mind. We may say things different. We may attack things differently, and that's fine. Like, try both ways, figure out which ones that work, and then tell us, like, if Josh was right and it works for you and I was wrong, cool. Like, you got better at the end of the day. And I make sure the players know that too. But yeah, I think just giving them a ton of ownership early. And you see that because then they start investing, they start randomly doing video work on the side without me even knowing with players, and meeting them early at the field without even letting me know about it in a good way. And so I think that's been a huge piece of it. And then having more of those conversations on the side when you need to.
Yeah, I think it's important too to not not get too protective of that, right? Of wanting everything to, and it seems like you're in a great framework there. And as a coach, to build, comfortability, that there's trust in what I'm doing and this and that. And I'm sure there's conversations behind the door of, maybe questioning the thought process of, what were you thinking here with this? And maybe he blows your mind away and like, okay, I didn't see it that way. And you move on, or maybe you guys come to a common agreements going forward. But that's the fun part of it, to be able to sit back and watch guys work and then be able to have conversations behind the door and not be on the field. I think some places are guilty of it more than others, but like constantly feeding guys more and more and more and more and more from a couple different voices, right? Like, I think if there can kind of be a productive conversation and trust factor within the staff, that I might not say something now, but eventually we're going to have a conversation about this and try to come to, some agreement of what we see and what we do and all those type of things. But yeah, that's fun. On a practice day, like, where do you find yourself kind of working within the framework of practice? Like, how is your movement there? Are you kind of working from position group to position group? Do you tie yourself down to one thing? What's kind of your day that in the life there on an outdoor practice?
Yeah. So, I mean, definitely just the way it's ended up being set up. I've definitely worked primarily with infielders. Um, but like I kind of even mentioned, like all my other coaches pretty much have some sort of a job elsewhere. So there's days where I restructure things where I'm going to let the infielders do their dailies, catch play, and maybe a little extended stuff while I work with the outfielders. Um, and so that's definitely a piece. And I make sure I set up practices at least once a week where I am with a positional group for an extended time, just so I can be there, pick their brain, kind of tell them, be like, hey, like in the game this week, this is what I've noticed out of, the outfield group. And I would self-proclaim I'm not a great outfield coach. That's not my gig, but kind of talk through what I've seen with them and ask them, hey, like, what do you work on? What do you think you need to get better at it there? So I think making sure I get to each position pretty consistently, at least weekly for a good extended time. And then we probably do, I mean, the way we usually set up practice is about the first 45 minutes is typically individual defensive work. And then we try to get the whole team together no matter what. And whether it's for 10 minutes or an hour to do, maybe it's literally a quick 10-minute competition. Maybe it's an extended in and out with live runners or custom relays, all that kind of stuff. But making sure we're all together at some point so I can make some sort of connection with every single guy, or at least see a rep from every single player on the team every day. That's definitely been important, and just making sure the guys know, hey, like, coach is available. Yeah, I may have my specific coach, but coach is always available to watch and is paying attention. So yeah, I think that structure's worked really well for us. But day to day, I'm with the infielders just because we've never had another coach that really likes it, and we're lucky. I like a lot of pitching stuff too, so I usually, like, bullpen day, I'll definitely hop over there. But we've got 2 guys that are working with their pitchers right now, so I know they're taken care of, and I can focus a little bit more at the positional groups.
Talk about your progression as an infield coach, from where you were as a player to where you are now, like where some of that growth came. I'm sure, college players that maybe pitched more often played a significant amount of a position in their upbringing, right? But going that transitional piece to an infield coach, like where would have been kind of your maybe mentors there? Where have you found sources of information? Kind of where have you found your growth to be the highest in that infield training?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's coming into it. I hadn't coached infielders a ton. I mean, I mainly coached pitching stuff, and I'd done quite a bit of hitting stuff. And so, I mean, you can go look at the stats. If you look 5 years ago at my first year, our infield fielding percentage, it ain't pretty. It was not pretty. And we've gone very slowly upward. And I mean, if you've ever, our field's much nicer now, but if you went to our field back then, it was a full rock basically. So that didn't help matters either. But I would say, yeah, definitely learning. I've learned a ton from them. I mean, even just watching all the kind of the things online that you can go find and going and seeing all that. But I think the best thing I've done is honestly just ask the players a lot of questions. Test things out, test things of saying, like, yeah, do you think this part is actually helpful? Or do you think this is just kind of an eyewash thing? And truly asking the guys, like, I always tell them so they understand, like, hey, we're working on this drill because it helps you work through the ball with your footwork, whatever it is. So that at least they have an idea of it, but really asking them, be like, hey, when you feel the best, what have you done? And so kind of having that back and forth banter has been really helpful. Like this is by far my most talented defensive infield group is this year. Like far none. We're much better than we've ever been. And honestly, I've attacked it quite a bit different this year than I even have, in the last couple of years, just talking with the group of what makes them feel clean on the infield and in rhythm and all those kind of things. And so, and yeah, I mean, I've learned a lot more of the footwork and the things that, like, yes, you need to do, but you look at some really good, especially at the junior college level, like some of the best infielders don't always make it pretty. We had a kid 2 or 3 years ago, Ryan Defini, came here as a transfer, maybe thought he was a third baseman. And he looked horrible in the infield, like mechanically horrible. But the dude ended up being, I think he might have made second team. So he was second team or first team as a shortstop and ended up playing about 35 games as a shortstop And the dude was 24, slow feet, no shortstop tools, and it didn't look pretty, but he had the right flow and mentality that worked for him that we worked really hard on. And so, yeah, I mean, guys treat it differently. Footwork is definitely helpful, but I would say, especially over the past few years, we've started to transition a lot more from worrying about trying to get to the point A to point B and doing it the right footsteps and all those kind of things, to much more of just pure rhythm, and then letting the guys kind of figure out a little bit more of that timing as they get into the rhythm.
Yeah, Coach, I think that's really important there. You know, we kind of miss that as coaches. You know, we get out and we do a drill and we don't completely explain the purpose of the drill, right? I mean, we're just going to take, ground balls, or we're going to work left side, we're going to work back side, and we're just saying, hey, this is how we want it done, and I think, the importance of that dialogue really makes that, player feel, not that, he wasn't any less important coming into your program, but at least now he feels like, like you're saying, Coach, is that he's somebody, that you do, intentionally do care about his success as a team, as an individual. Do you find yourself through those conversations a lot easier off the field with your players, or do they just become a little bit less? I mean, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but some ways, players always seem to have a hard time connecting with their coaches on and off the field. I don't know if it's intimidation, if it's, whatever, maybe, maybe he's a more authoritative individual and that's a respect thing. But for you, with your guys, do you see that they're a little bit more transparent with you on and off the field?
Yeah. I mean, we've had a pretty good group of transparent guys that are pretty honest with me all the time, whether it's good or bad, both things. I've had players in a good way tell me like, hey, Coach, like this position group's really getting burnt out right now. Like we got to do something about it. And maybe I do. I mean, I've always, and I've told the whole staff, like one of the things I always want to prioritize is always telling them why we're doing what we're doing, and then giving them a chance to ask questions, to sometimes even disagree. And again, especially like my infielders, I've got a great knowledge, but maybe they disagree. And so like I say, okay, let's go test it out. And if your way is like, if it works and it's fluent and it works, whatever, let's stay with it. Like, let's not change it then. And so given that the guys where it's like, hey, I'm going to push something specific, but if you want to try to like rebut it because you think you actually have something that works, I'm going to all for that, because at the end of the day, that's going to create some more buy-in. That means that they're actually engaged. They're not just rolling through whatever we're practicing in. And so I've told that real bluntly with players, like you can ask why we're doing things. And if you don't if you disagree, let's talk about it and work kind of through that. And maybe I explain it where, oh yeah, that does make sense to them. Or like, hey Coach, like it just hasn't worked for me. But hey, let's go try what you're saying and I'll see if it clicks. And if it doesn't, cool, we'll go attack it a different way. But I would definitely say that's helped with players just feeling that they are important, that they have a buy-in on the team, and that they can actually do something about it. It's not, they know it's not my way or the highway all the time.
Talk about your drill kind of sequence progression, where you like to start guys. Obviously, everyone has their sense of dailies, whether they love them, hate them, whatever. But maybe talk about kind of some of your infield progressions, some of your baseline things that you like to put in place at the start of a fall.
Yeah. Even with that, I usually try that, first week or two of the fall, I'll show them a overwhelmingly large amount of like daily style of drills. Some that's really footwork specific, some that are hand specific. And I show them a whole bunch of them, and I tell them, hey, I want you to slowly start creating your own daily routine of something that makes you feel like you get into the rhythm. And then on top of that, I always want you to have a couple drills in your dailies that is something that you're very specifically working on that day. Like for our players, as soon as they show up to practice, we got a whiteboard in our dugout. They get in trouble. They have to run, basically. If they don't do this, they have to write in like just one or two things that they're working on that day specifically. They get the practice plan usually a day or two ahead of time. So they kind of know what we're doing at least. And they have to write something that, hey, I want to get I find I'm an infielder. I want to get better at my backhand today because I know we're taking, some extended GBs or whatever it is. And so I say, all right, so whatever whatever else you're doing that day, make sure that a part of your daily is you're working on that specific thing you need to work on. And a lot of time, like I'll give guys, be like, hey, for this next week, you need to work on throwing on the run to your left. And so they kind of know that things and they can start adding it into their rhythms. But yeah, I mean, we definitely do. I mean, we do the classic stuff where it's a lot of, on the knees, getting your hand work, backhand, forehands. We've turned to doing less and less of those kind of things and more as far as just creating rhythms and good paths. And worked out really good towards the end of our fall that I made pretty much all of our infielders 2 to 3 times a week. Literally just kind of do like slow running pulls as they're playing catch with someone else. And they would have to do them where one guy's running backwards, running forward, and then you do it side to side. So then every single day they had to do jogging catch play. And we noticed right after that sure, our throws were better, but infielders were attacking the ball way, way faster just because they were used to it already. They had done something like that or just moving while they're doing baseball. And so that's something where we've turned to more late. But I do really like where players need to own what makes them feel in a rhythm and then make sure they're just doing a couple things a day that they specifically need to get better at.
Yeah, I like that. I think very rarely does a infielder, specifically a middle infielder, make a throw with still feet, right? Like you could think maybe a second baseman pivot, maybe a 4-step pattern on a ball that's crushed at you. But generally there's some type of movement associated with getting to a ball and throwing with it, right? And I think throwing angles is another one that naturally that drill of jogging pulls and playing catch naturally is building some of that, like learning to throw from different angles to accomplish a task. Because I'd imagine the first day that you run that drill, there's probably a lot more, fetch than catch happening, right?
It's pretty messy.
But then you get tired of it. The pull gets a lot longer if I have to chase after the ball and run the pull, right? So naturally I'm going to organize myself into playing good catch. I love it. But yeah, I mean, do you spend time on throwing angles specifically? Like you talk about balls to the left, to the right, like how do you kind of match that? I know some old school thought is get on top of the ball. And I think as we've progressed and gotten to a day and age where we know that doesn't exist very often, if at all. But maybe talk about throwing angles in the slot and maybe some of the other training that you do with your infield group.
Yeah. I mean, we definitely do some specific drills to help out with like the low slot throw for, third baseman feeling a bunt, shortstop turning up a play, all those kind of things. We have some drills that they pretty consistently do with that. One thing that we started doing, which again, it was, I think back then it was Gary Llewellyn. He was 68, 69 years old, something like that. He said, hey, I do this with my outfielders. I think you should try it with the infield. And literally like for shortstops, we would just put them at their position. We'd have a ball on a cone 10, 15 feet to the right and one to the left. And then they would just practice, they'd do 5 to the right where they had the whole thing was you click the stopwatch as soon as they do their first movement and they have to see how they approach the ball and which kind of slot gets them to the ball the quickest. And so, because again, for some guys, shortstop in the 6 hole, let's just say like that's a big one. Some guys did pretty good with their time when they actually did keep running to the right and they did not the full Jeter hop and everything, but they were pretty active where some guys can't and throw. And we sat there with stopwatches and tried if you didn't, we go straight forward with the cone. And so I think that was super helpful that, again, a coach kind of brought that, an older, wiser coach brought to my attention, like, hey, you just test everything and see what works. And again, it was really interesting to see, like, shortstop to the left, let's say. Some guys did better when they did turn, close the shoulder, and then make the throw, or some guys did better when they did the full, 360 spin throw. And it was good to see that each guy kind of figured out what was their best. Like I actually did that with the outfielders at the end of the fall too, very similar drill. And And so that's been super helpful with talking, different style of throws on the run. They can kind of learn what actually does work for their arm slot that doesn't always have to be pretty. Like I have my ideas. Like I think you're at a JUCO shortstop. If you're going to your right, you probably need to plant your foot and throw. I mean, probably 80% of guys are that. There's not a ton of just crazy arm strength guys at this level quite yet. But we've had a couple where it's like, yep, you are absolutely that way. And I mean, I've seen, who was it? One of the Spokane shortstops a few years ago. He did his infield throws completely different. Like he didn't have much of an arm, but his whole thing is he figured out how to release anything so quickly that, I mean, he was probably throwing it 70 across the diamond, but he figured out something that worked really, really good for him. And so that was a drill that we usually do about mid-fall and make sure guys know, hey, this is how you personally do it the best. Now we got to train it that way.
Yeah, and I think
I just
too,
wrote that down. That was perfect. I like that. I'm gonna steal that one.
Fun.
And I think too, when guys, you recognize that they're going to be more, routinely approaching the ball that way too,
Mm-hmm.
And not thinking too much about their mechanics and trying to be more robotic or structured or, whatever it can be. You want them to be free thinkers, right? You want them to be reactive. And I think that's really the key is to coaching every player is that every kid is uniquely designed, right? Your structure is not going to be the same as my structure. Kelly is not going to be the same structure as Eric. So we're all going to be coached differently because of our body types and, our way of movements. And so I think the key is when you can kind of fine tune those with your players, and that even goes, I think, into hitting too, and you can kind of, every swing is going to be a little bit differently approach, but the thing is, if you're on point and that's on point of infield is spot on making that throw and your arm slot's in controlled, motion, you're going to be money every single time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at some point their athleticism has to take over and let them just play, right? Like we tried to drill it in our guys, but finally it's like, dude, just go be an athlete. You know what to do, and let them be free a little bit.
And that's been fun. So again, I test different things. We needed a lot of infielders out of our current freshman class, and including like a third baseman, very specifically needed some work there. I signed only shortstops this year. Literally, I was like, I'm not going to sign any other position group, infield position group except for shortstops. Which again, this is probably the best defensive team we've ever had on the infield, and they were athletic, so they could, like, once they figure those things out, it clicks a little bit more.
Yeah,
it's tough to break those chains too, though. And like shortstops, I mean, they're used to making different plays at a bunch of different angles, and I think it's not a new thought to think to bring in, the best athletes generally on the field.
Mm-hmm.
No offense to your pitcher past, but generally the best athletes on the field or your middle of the field players. We'll give center fielders some love too. But those guys are able to, one, be leaders. They're used to, again, plays at different positions and naturally, they're going to embrace things as leaders that, help the better of the team too. If I have to be the guy that moves to third base this year or second base this year or left field this year, like if that helps us as a team win, like generally those guys are going to be, more acceptable to that. Right. So, have you ran into that at all? Like a little bit this year with guys coming in and, I was the king of shortstop, and now I come here and I realize that I'm not the best player on the field anymore. Obviously that happens every year, but bringing in that many of guys that are used to playing one position, have you had to fight that a little bit or able to have conversations that guys understand and get?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, when you bring in all shortstops, they think they're all the dudes usually, which is good. Like you want guys to think they're the dudes, mentally just strong in that way. I knew we were going to potentially have issues with that kind of what you're talking about. And so those first 2 weeks, I literally made all of our infielders share an even amount of second, short, and third. And I had them do everything so they could at least get a little taste of everything. We could, as coaches, see their actions at each spot. And then even without a coach telling them, I just kind of told them, like, hey, pick the 2 positions now that you're best at. And they all kind of knew where they probably should fit in. And there was only at that point, I mean, again, we probably had like 6 shortstops on the team. I think there's only 3 guys that still mainly lined up at shortstop. A couple guys hit second, some go to third, all those kind of things. And so then guys, you kind of progress and fall. They all have at least 2 positions that they know and they feel comfortable. And then they can kind of see, okay, my footwork is a lot cleaner at this spot more. So then they really start to dive into one. So for me, it's actually been pretty nice where I've had guys, because we set it up that way, I've had guys come ask me, be like, hey, coach, like, do you think I should mainly just work it at second base? And then it opens up an easy conversation where I see them. And some guys, I mean, you do have to be like, hey, like, I love you, man. You got a great glove, but your foot speed's never going to get you in the middle infield. You've got to be at third base. And I think that's a great spot for you. But I will say it's a ton of fun having all the guys play all the positions for a little while, just because their baseball IQ goes up a little bit. They get a little more respect for the other infield spots wherever they're at. And it definitely helps when you get like team defenses, bunt defenses. I mean, heck, still during like bunt Ds, first and thirds, I make guys go to at least 2 different positions at all times so they know what other people are doing. So that was a strategy that, yeah, I knew we were going to have tough conversations with all the shortstops, but letting them kind of sort themselves out really helped too.
Coach, let's transition a little bit into hitting. We talked about a little about being in rhythm. How important is that working with your hitters? And what type of drills do you guys do to kind of just get their training and getting that rhythm and that feel like game ready?
Yeah. I mean, again, that's probably the thing that Wenatchee Valley we've done the best at over the past few years. We've been in the top 5 pretty much every single offensive category. And honestly, I let guys really figure out some of what they like as far as rhythm. But we kind of preach, like, if you look a lot of swing patterns, obviously there's so many different things that work. And so that's why I never tell a kid, like, no, you can't do it this way. We try to kind of adapt it with it. But really, you look at guys who, in my opinion, there's kind of 2 styles of load that we really teach. There's guys who coil and guys who like to, much smaller coil, but much heavier drift. So there's the deep coil versus the drift is kind of how we talk about it. And so that's something, again, usually mid-fall when we're kind of getting the idea of guys. We have all hitters try both of those formats. And I tell them, be like, hey, like, either one of these loading styles can very much work. Go hit a whole bunch for this week and tell me by the end of the week which one feels best to you, like which loading style works for you. And usually, almost always within like 2 days, they can obviously tell which feels the best. And then outside of that, the biggest thing too, we work pretty hard on. We would do the load and proper kind of on the backside. We preach a ton of that. And then honestly, just getting the barrel on plane. And there's a ton of different ways to do that, but we coach that really hard on guys of just matching pitch plane in general. And so for me, like, I would say we probably spend 90% of our hitting coaching efforts on understanding how do you load, how do you get prepared on time, if not early. And we do. That's been one of probably the biggest killers, I think, of really good hitters is they do everything really well, but they just don't load up early enough. They don't get to the spots where they need to get to consistently. They get a part of the way there, or sometimes they're not used to getting there early and then they don't know what to do with themselves and they start lunging out. But we do a lot of things where you just have to load up really early and know how to stay in your load. And that's, as far as like rhythm, that's been a huge piece for us, is players understanding how to stay in their load for extended times. And I would say minimum 15 times of practice, I say, hey, load early, load easy. There's probably that Malachi kid I talked about early. I probably told him that, like, in a not joking way, 200 plus times last year. And I still tell him that probably a couple times a week. But when guys understand how to get into a good position, how to stay calm in that position, then it really does prepare them for the rest of the swing. And, we work on some of that, but I think that loading phase is 90% of the effort.
A lot to unpack there. A lot to unpack there. let's start on just that load pattern, like as far as the drill sets and things that you're going through, progressing from tee to a front toss to a coach pitch to a machine or whatever that task building is for you. But how do you get guys to, I mean, so many hitters are afraid of getting beat, right? So naturally, I want to try to go get the ball, right? Because I don't want to be late. I'd rather fight one off on my front foot with no backside than swing and miss on a ball by me, right? So how do you build that up to them to learn to stay in a coil, to not release front hip early or front side early, or however you explain that? Like, what are the type of drill sets that you feel like have been the most successful to help guys stay in that position as long as possible?
Yeah. I would immediately think of a couple. And again, probably the first one that we do, I don't know, maybe once a week, is a drill that 7-year-old coach showed me. You get loaded, you get into your normal load, and then you have a guy just holding a baseball and they just drop it and you have to hit it. And then after you get better, he gets lower and lower and lower. And you realize at some point that, like, man, like, he's dropping the ball, and within 2.5 feet from my loaded position, I can make contact. And it's a really good one where, like, it doesn't necessarily work like mechanics, but it's a really good visual for them to realize how fast they can actually be. So I really like that one for those guys who don't trust it yet. We do another one where we just do like classic soft toss, but then I literally just tell the guy who's soft tossing, hey, I want you every once in a while to pump fake once or twice. Just like literally try to screw with their timing. And even guys, when I'm throwing BP and stuff, there's another one of my coaches do the same thing. If we see they're only trying to get our timing as the BP thrower, we'll literally just screw with them. And we'll tell them that we're screwing with them. We're like, hey, well, we're going to quick pitch you. We're going to hold our leg longer. We're going to do all these kind of things, kind of forcing them to make sure that they are comfortable in that spot and understand, hey, I can go get that. And we really do. Like, I always tell guys, as far as like staying loaded, a really good 2-strike approach that we work with our guys in practicing staying loaded is stole it from Albert Pujols. He always said, I want to hit an inside fastball the other way, or up the middle, I think he said. And talks about keeping everything back and knowing that you're a fast enough athlete to do that. And we do. I try to tell the guys over and over and over, like, hey, your swing is quick. Like, you got to trust that you can do this, and trying to give them that positivity too.
Love that. Yeah, it takes time, right? It takes time to build that trust. And, having worked with guys in the past, like the feel versus real is something that's kind of on a constant battle for us to be in there. When you talk about the two different types of hitters, right? You talk about a deep coil guy versus part of a drift guy. Like, how do you kind of discern those two categories as a hitter? Like, what are the characteristics that you kind of see that would allow a hitter to be one of those two parts?
Yeah. I mean, that's a good one. Like I said, we have guys test it out. I would say guys, and it's not always guys who are probably naturally to like an easy eye test, guys who just naturally like to stay taller, typically like to be more in that drift phase. And guys who like to get deeper into their crouch or their stance, whatever you want to say, they're typically more in the coil. And just for sake, when I say coil, like I'm not on the full snap and tilt train. Like, I understand that. I think there is some great science actually to that, but I think if you combine and maybe tone down that a little bit, there's a really good spot there. But we don't snap and tilt. I got one guy that we're trying to break so hard, but but more so coil is just understanding that you can push all the way down through your back heel really, really efficiently and stay in your back heel until you actually start your swing path. Which again, you look at pitching, that's what's preached, right? And pitching now, they turn into like there's quad dominant and hamstring dominant guys, and there's all that stuff too. But the guys who are really good at getting into that leg and staying in that leg, that's kind of that. Those are some of the like the commonalities. And we do some like just to have guys test that out. We do a lot of like open stance, kind of like 45 feet, but you still have to hit it to the right side of the field as a righty. And so you feel how deep you can get, and then just slowly moving that tee even deeper and deeper in that stance to see how that feels comfortable. And we do a drill. It's like there's the Kershaw drill for guys who like to be able to drift, or there's a variation of it called the flamingo drill, which is really similar. But those are good ones for guys to at least feel what it looks like to drift. But I mean, it really is like guys will start to feel it when they test out both methods. I think a really good example, we had a good hitter last year. He was our catcher. He's at NNU this year, Henry Hankel. He's a switch hitter. He was, if I remember, from the right side, he tested these things out, and he was 100% a drift guy, and it felt better. From the left side, 100% a coil guy, which I had never seen that in a switch hitter. Usually they're pretty similar swings, but they were very different swings. And he tested those kind of things out, and it clicked in right away. So yeah, for me, it's maybe hard to tell who's who, but we just want to make sure we give guys both options to test out, and then see what feels good. Use the Rapsodo, use the field to see ball flight, use it in some live settings to see, hey, can I still drift but stay back enough to time up baseballs? Am I that guy? If I can't do that, then I kind of have to be more into that coil phase.
Yeah, have you seen like the when you go to the machine, is that the toughest part for guys that have maybe been a little bit more, that have never really turned their hips properly in a load phase, that they're a little bit more like back and forward? Like, is that where you see maybe some of the breakdowns of guys being able to take what's being taught? I think we can all do things on a tee and a front toss in a very controlled environment and comfortably replicate them. And then you get the live ball phase, I kind of mentioned earlier, and you get to that panic set in. Like, I know there's drills to build confidence, but how have you seen breaking over that barrier for guys to know that they have more time than they think they do, maintaining a load and swinging when the ball's a little bit closer to the plate?
Yeah, that's a great one. And honestly, it is, for some guys, it clicks really quick and they understand it. For some guys, like you're saying, it's really hard mentally to feel comfortable with what that is. And for me, I think like we have a guy Cam, like he's a coil guy and he doesn't really know what he's doing with his swing this year. And he started to figure out towards the end of kind of our fall winter. And for him, it was literally just me sitting behind him off the machine or off a live arm and just telling him over and over and over, like, dude, you're fast. You can do this. Hey, like, stay deep. You're fast. You can do this. And then literally like just me telling him, I would watch 10 pitches. I would tell him it 5 times. And I would make sure I'd check in on him again in the next round and just keep repeating that mentally over and over to him. Because he definitely wanted to fight it at first, because he wasn't a bad hitter to begin with. I just knew there's more in there, and wanted to fight it, didn't want to let it happen. And slowly towards the end, he kind of started getting the grasp of it. And then we have, another guy. And I think video helps in game too, at least getting some of those. I'm a guy, I think video is great in game, but you've always got to take it a little bit with that grain of salt, where like I've also seen specifically like pitchers, some hitters burn themselves out with reviewing every little detail in their swing, and now they don't even know what their swing feels like anymore. It happens way too much, but that's helpful for doing it every so often, so they can see, hey, week 1, this is where you're at. Now you can see, hey, I actually made a little more progress. You've noticed that you're getting a little more consistent contact now. So kind of comparing the slow steps for some of those guys helps too. But honestly, it's a lot of it just saying it over and over and over and over, whether it's 100 times or what, that slowly gets them to actually believe it.
And this brings me back to earlier in the episode with you and your communication with coaches. And, we had hitters this year. One was a senior, and he, for 3.5 years, basically, I was trying to tell him the same thing over and over. But luckily, having the coaching staff, they'd be like, hey, this is what I'm trying to tell the kid. Mm-hmm. And you go tell him the exact same thing, but in your version of it. And it turned out for us, it was hooking the kid up to a blast motion and showing the 3D path of his bat, and it clicked. And I mean, he was hitting the $120 and he led the team in hitting before the thing was over with, because it was just like that little thing. But, you know, your overall communication with your hitters, and maybe you have to do that with some of the other coaches, and having how many different voices of coach and hitting, you know, in such a complicated thing, was keeping it simple. You know, talk to us about how you communicate with your teams and use your assistants through that.
Yeah, I would say one
Hitting.
thing with especially as, like I said, Josh does a lot of our other hitting stuff with me. And one thing that we tried to do at the beginning every fall, and sometimes we go a little off the script, but we'll try to pick like, hey, you work with these 12 hitters this week, I'm going to work with these 12 this week, and then next week we're going to flop. So having that ahead of time with the assistant coach has been helpful, just so we know kind of like, hey, I'm going to go ignore this guy's reps, but focus on this guy for at least a little bit, see what I get out of him, and then he's yours for next week, and let's see if what you do kind of clicks or not, and see where they're working. So I would say that has been helpful. But again, I even go back to it for as far as the hitters to grasp on things. Like I have to, when I talk anything mechanical, like I really do try to explain why I'm telling them those things. That's been huge. Or like, why are we doing this drill? It's not just a drill to hit the ball hard to the right side. It's like, no, we're actually working on how we can stay deep into our load and how we can actually let the ball travel and like understand the purpose of it. That's been huge as far as getting the players to get some of those grasped at least and buy into it a little bit quicker. And I turn a lot to the players, like the players, the guys who have been through the program for at least a year, they kind of know where I'm coming from and know what I'm trying to get to. And so they tell the players too, like, hey, like, you know, coach is right. Like you do look, I can tell, like you look better from this loading pattern. You look better when you do this X, Y, Z. So getting those guys to reinforce it, it's super helpful.
And I know that aha moment when it hits some of those guys. And
Yeah.
unfortunately with this kid, I was like, I've been saying this for 3.5 years. Dang it. We would have get this figured out 3 years ago, man. Who knows what could have happened. And
I would say the best way to figure it out is somewhere you got to get almost that slap in the face that you're not quite good enough yet. Honestly, for me, that's the best way to get it done. And again, sometimes you kind of have to, as a coach, you have to be a little bit of a jerk and tell the kids that they're not good enough yet. And usually if you give them that little slap, sometimes it doesn't go well for a little bit, but then they realize, all right, well, like if I do want to be better, I better go try this at least or see what happens.
How much does machine work with your hitters plays into this? I mean, do you guys, I know you mentioned, Coach, that you and some of your staff throw to your guys live. You guys do some tee work, drop ball stuff, but how much do you guys mix in some double machines, some of the off-speed stuff? What do you guys do in working on those kind of pitches? Yeah,
so I'm going to be honest, we're probably one of the extremely rare coaching staffs that we barely touch a machine for hitting. Again, I'm lucky enough we have a good amount of coaches that can actually throw. You don't always get that. So we're 100% lucky there. Because we have, there's 6 of us, and like 3 of us throw phenomenal BP right now, and a couple other guys like can mix in. Again, I have a 7-year-old coach where if it's short range, he can actually throw okay BP still. And so we're pretty big on that. And like we do, I would say, you know, if we had BP are hitting 6 days a week, probably at least 3 of those days, maybe 4, they're seeing some sort of off speed. And like what we actually like to do a lot of even mixed BP, or letting them know like, hey, we're going to do a curveball round, change up round, fastball, and then we're going to do a mixed round. And so we are pretty lucky in that we're able to do that. And well, for me in the winter, both sides, I tell coaches this, when you're hitting indoors and you're stuck there for a while, I actually have a lot of my like infielders and catchers throw batting practice. Great to learn because those are short arm action anyways. So great to learn for them. And then this winter will be the first time we kind of do it. We'll have all of our pitchers once a week throw 20 minutes of mixed pitching, or off speed and all that kind of stuff, batting practice to guys, you know, not a true flat ground, but literally just mixing in all their pitches to get the feel for it. And so, yeah, we're not a huge machine staff. I think there's a great place when I need to pump up a nasty curveball and I know we're facing a guy, I'm going to do it. Like, for example, we faced Bowman from Spokane. Was it last year, 2 years ago? And if you go look at that guy, like his fastball truly runs 12 inches plus. And so I pretty much set it up with that run, and the guys thought I was ridiculous. Like, coach, we're never going to see something like this. But I'd seen video. I was like, dude, this fastball runs like crazy, and it's 88 plus. So like for those kind of specific things, we like to use the machine, or for like we really want to practice matching plane on a curveball kind of day, we'll mix that in. But we're a big time. We like to throw. We like to see, have the players see the ball out of the hand and get that read too.
That's good. Coach, how much does your mental game play into you guys' as you prep for your everyday practice games? Do you guys do anything particular in classroom aspects, outside of fall ball leading up to the upcoming season? What are some of those things that you guys like to do?
Yeah, we got a good handful. I'm a huge believer in the sports psych, all that kind of stuff. One thing that we've noticed a good uptick with guys in the fall, just coming in, even as true freshmen. Throughout the summer, I usually break the guys into groups of 8. And I remember back in like the day, you'd have like your summer baseball reading book you had to do or whatever occasionally, or those kind of things. But for our guys, they have to listen the whole summer, once a week. They have to listen to a sports psych podcast that's 20 minutes plus. Something that they find interesting. I'd let them pick whatever they want. And then they have to write 3 bullet points in their group text about what they got out of that podcast. So that's been something kind of fun that we've done, where it's real easy. It takes them 20, 30 minutes, short text, but it also starts connecting the guys, which is kind of nice. And they're like, oh, that guy found that out. That's kind of cool. So that's been good. Again, I'm tell the players, I'm a big time believer. If your mind is free off the field, if you're doing your business well off the field, then when you show up, like baseball's pretty easy. Like at that point, it is just a game. Like you are just having fun. And so helping guys realize that I'm going to let them occasionally prioritize things off the field, to make sure that their head's in the right place. And we even have the policy for guys, hey, if you're at practice and something off the field is, going to have you down that day, like I only need 100% of whatever you have. And if today you only got 60% of yourself because you're super stressed out over this big assignment or whatever it is, like tell the coaches, and we'll at least know that. We'll be able to treat you a little bit different, knowing that you have something else off the field going. So I know that's been beneficial for our guys, and we do some pretty, I think, unique and fun things as far as like getting guys to like each other. That's always the hard part. You like each other. Baseball's pretty fun too. When you got, even if you got, 40, 45 guys, if y'all like each other and you're in a, not best friend relationship, but you all can respect each other, that makes my job a heck of a lot easier. So
absolutely.
Well, Coach, we've been we're usually going to some listener comments and questions, but we got a listener video chat. And speaking of guys that might have played for you, and we can hear some stories of Coach Vaughn.
Oh boy,
bringing in Devin Fry
to
the
Coach.
Podcast.
Nothing much. Ready to share some stories about Coach Vaughn.
Oh man, I love to hear it. He got my first year brunt, so that was still a little rough.
Oh, the best.
Yeah,
love these.
I got a few from Coach Vaughn. Before I even met Coach Vaughn, I was going in my 3rd year. I wasn't sure where I was going to go. COVID wiped out a lot of our season, my 1st and 2nd year at Wenatchee. Didn't have a ton of stats. Didn't know really where I was going to end up. So funny thing is, I pretty much knew the head coach at Big Bend, and I knew Rain at Big Bend, and they were recruiting me to come over and play for my 3rd year at Big Bend. The day that I was about to sign with them, the AD for Wenatchee gave me a call, and they said, hey, what's your thoughts of staying at Wenatchee? And I said, well, I got to see who's the coach. He goes, well, it's the pitching coach at Big Bend. And I'm like, well, that's who I was going to play for. So that works out pretty good. So I was pretty pumped to be a part of just like changing the culture there at Wenatchee. I invested a lot of time into that, so I knew Vaughn would be the guy to do it, which he is, and which he still is. But as a player, I think like the beginning of the year, Vaughn took us up to. We'd really never had a ton of lifts built for us when I was at Wenatchee, so Vaughn took us up into the weight room, the whole team up there into the rec center, gave us our workouts. And then showed every single exercise to us, how to do it, which was awesome because we were like, I'm like, what's a lawnmower? I'm like, cable lawnmower. What the heck? All these. So yeah, that was really cool. But the funniest thing was on Wednesday, there was this huge thing of conditioning. And I'm like, get up, like, what is this? What is this all about? And until we did it, it was just like, there's a lot of laying on your stomach, getting up as fast as you can, sprinting. And I just looked at one of the third year guys and I said, we have not done anything like this before. And then the last story I'll tell here is we were in Yakima against Yakima Valley. We were up about 8-2. Yakima started catching up. The umps were kind of they were okay, but they weren't bad enough. But Vaughn looked pretty much. He pretty much looked back at his coach and said, "I'm going to get tossed out of this game." and I mean, listening to the beginning of this, he is more the calm guy. So when he went and got tossed, it fired everybody up, and we ended up winning the game. So he did it just out of strategy. So yeah, it was a pretty funny moment. But yeah.
Fry, I got a good one for you to share of a bad Coach Vaughn moment.
Okay.
What happened when we played at UW? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. I mean, is it the fact that we got smoked, or is it the fact, or you put Zach Lofgren in the game for me to pitch for me?
That's true.
I was thinking of more of the moment. The only thing I can remember from UW was we made about 9 errors, and you came out to the mound and you pretty much told me, you yelled at the other guys and said, "All right, you're just gonna have to do it yourself." And then I struck out the side. But that's all.
We'll see if I remember. I might have made them after a rainy game doubleheader. I might have made them do some sprints after the game. I was pretty raw. So
no, he did. He did. I didn't think it. Well, at that time, right then, I honestly didn't think that is a bad thing because just being at Wenatchee, I was just sick of losing. So I thought that was honestly awesome. I was like, "This is awesome." Someone like cared enough to make us run in the rain. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
All right, Devin, give us your best road trip story you got with Coach Vaughn.
Best road trips. Oh yeah. So I actually, and I almost missed the road trip. So so it was a day where I was having some scap tightness, and so we were traveling to CBC, and I wasn't going to pitch, but Coach Vaughn wanted me to go there, and I was just going to throw a pen. So I was sitting on the couch, and I had all my stuff with me, and I fell asleep. I woke up to about 15 calls, and I barely made the bus, and I get on the bus, and Vaughn is like, "Okay, all right, you can ride the bus. We're going to sing a song for everybody before we go." I honestly couldn't tell you what song I sang. I was still half asleep, but I just remember being in the most panic, and my face was probably, really red. And I will remember that because I would set 3 or 4 alarms like 2 hours before I had to get up before I missed that happening again. So yeah, that I mean, even though that was before the road trip, that was by far the number one story for sure on the road trip right there.
We still got that policy. Whoever is pretty much either last on the bus, if you're borderline late, even if you're on the minute on time, but you're close enough, you got to sing for everyone.
Yeah, it's a great one, especially when my voice, I've been told by my wife, is not very good. So.
Oh, love it. That's good. Good
We
stuff.
won't ask you, but if we ever get him on here, we'll make sure to bring you back on.
Yes, I mean, I could probably give a couple, but
I need his blessing first. I got a good relationship with him still. Let's not burn a bridge.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's cool.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, Devin, thanks, man, for jumping on and giving us some Coach Vaughn stories.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for having me. Good to see you, Coach.
Yeah, good to see you, Fry. Say hi to Maddie for me too.
I will. Thank you.
Oh, Coach Vaughn, that's awesome, man.
Yeah,
First
he was a
time? Is that
good
first
one.
time former player on the?
I think
the
so.
episode?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This might be be
We're
Vaughn's
hitting some
Corner.
new-
We're gonna make a name
yeah,
to this.
Vaughn's
I like it.
Corner. Love it.
There we go.
Yeah. Fry will
That's
say
going on
Fry,
a t-shirt.
yeah. Fry is a good one. I mean, he was a team captain and he had some bumps on the road as far as his career, but you talk about a good character kid. He was a good one, worked his butt off, and he was sick of losing. I talked about that earlier. We had a group that was tired of not winning and doing things right. And so he was a huge part of that culture switch and wanted to be a part of it too.
That's cool. God, I love those guys. Those are hard to find.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely are.
Well, Coach, as we start to wrap this thing up, do you have any fun stories that you want to share from your time of coaching? Any more fun stories just to kind of close this thing out and light in?
Here, I got one that's I think is probably the funniest coaching thing I've ever had. And you guys made me think of it as far as a road trip. I think it was second year, I want to say. We were going to Treasure Valley, and I mean, that's a horrible road trip. It's 7 hours. So we get there, and I knew it was going to be bad news bears because we were already out of the playoffs at that point. It was our last games of the season. And I was like, this is just literally adding up for a horrible thing to happen. Like you players graduating, like you can't control that anymore. And so I remember we got into the hotel all good, doing room checks that night. And I was like, all right, like I got to do this, like it's checks. And so I'm doing room checks, doing all fine. I get to the last one. I open up the door and just mass amounts of weed smell, just massive amounts. I was like, oh my. And if you've been to Ontario, there's weed stores everywhere because it's right next to Idaho. So you can, it makes sense. Yeah. And so I was like, I don't even know what to do. So I like did my room check, shut the door, went back to my assistant coach. Was like, man, like, what are we going to do about this? Like, this is horrible. So I went back down, confronted them about it. And they all said, oh no, coach, we're not doing that. I was like, guys, it smells like the whole hall. I can smell this. Like this isn't, it's strictly from your room right now. It's coming right out. And there was luckily there's a couple freshmen in the room. And so I just told them, be like, hey, like, if you guys, like, if you don't, one of you guys don't own up to what this is, y'all are off the team. Like, I'm going to make sure that the school like knows the policies and all these kind of things. And that go back to my room, tell them where like, hey, you got to come find me before 11 or whatever. And one guy finally comes up, knocks on the door, and he's like, coach, I'm in there. And it was a kid I actually trusted quite a bit. And like, he looked terrified and like pretty truthful. I was like, there's no way. And so I walked back down there and I was like, I walk in the room with him. I was like, hey, you can smell as soon as you walk in this room. It's all over the place. And sure enough, the end of the story, none of them actually did smoke weed. And the issue was, which we realized as I'm looking in the room, that there's a guy right outside their window smoking, and their vent is on high because they know it smells horrible in there. And there's a guy who's literally dealing weed in Ontario, Oregon, and smoking right in front of their air conditioner, and it's just puffing straight in. I mean, I was so relieved at that point, and it really was. It was truthful because they were scared out of their minds. And so yeah, so that was a pretty funny one. Where it was like worst coaching scenario to the funniest thing ever. And I went up, talked to the guy who was smoking weed outside. I was like, hey, have you been here for a little bit? He's like, oh yeah, I've been in here for about 15 minutes. And he looked all sketchy, like, why are you asking this? I was like, no. I was like, told him the whole story. But everything checked out. Yeah, that was probably my that was the funniest, just I don't even know what I'm doing with my life coaching moment.
I think you just gave every college baseball player in America an out.
Yeah. You got to find some guy who's happened to sit outside your window. And stuff. Yeah, but that was a good time. Good group of kids in that room too. It was funny, but all ended well.
Oh, Coach, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Man, well, thank you so much for taking a couple hours out of your night tonight to come on and talk shop with us. I know we truly appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it was fun. Loves talking some baseball, and good bunch of people in here. So glad we could do it.
Yeah, that was a blast. Good luck this season, Coach. Stick around for the after chat.